Good morning students, how are you all? I hope you all are fine and safe at home. Today we are going to take chapter 1 and 2 of civics, which we have already taken through video. But now this is a revision time. So we are going to revise the chapter of civics 1 and 2. This will help you to make the chapter more clear. Listen to me clearly and you will find the chapter very easy and interesting. So we are going to start. Take out your book, Civics, chapter 1. It will help you to understand the chapter better once again. So see the video till end. Civics chapter 1, the Indian Constitution revision. We are going to revise this chapter of civics 1 and 2. So students, we are going to start with some key points of the chapter. That's our points to be remembered. Okay. Number 1, in 1934, the Indian National Congress made the demand for a constituent assembly. Number 2, the previous constitution of Nepal, which had been adopted in 1990, reflected the fact that the final authority rested with the king. Number 3, a people's movement in Nepal fought for several decades to establish democracy. I am going to explain these points in the blackboard. So, look at me carefully, try to understand the chapter. As it is mentioned that in 1934, Indian National Congress, which was established on 1885. Indian National Congress demanded for constituent assembly. Mark the date 1934. So students, first of all, our Indian National Congress demand for constituent assembly in 1934. So what was the constitution? If we talk about present scenario, most of the countries have their constitution, while all the democratic countries are likely to have a constitution. Listen to me this point very clearly, it will be very helpful to you. I am repeating it, while all the democratic countries are likely to have constitution, but it is not necessary that all the countries that have constitution are democratic. Clear? Now, our constitution lays out certain ideas that form the basis of the country that we citizen aspire to live in. What? Our constitutions lays out certain ideas that form the basis of the country that we citizens aspire to live in. Here the example of Nepal is given in your book. What was there? If we talk about 1990, there was a monarchy. Do you understand what is the meaning of monarchy? Means the rule of a king. There was a rule of a king. If we talk about in 1990, there was a rule of a king. But after that, they demanded for democracy. Clear? They demanded for democracy in 2007. They fought and they got the democracy. So, what it needed to change their constitution according to the democracy. Why it's so? They demanded it because the previous constitution, which was according to the monarchy, where all the powers rested in the hands of the king, was not reflecting the ideals of the basis which they want their country to be. I hope it is clear to you. I am just making to let you know about the difference between the Nepal in 1990 and then when they demanded for democracy. Now they demanded for democracy. And India, we are already having democracy. As I have told you earlier that all the democratic countries need to have a constitution, but it is not necessary that all the countries that are having means that are democratic that not needs to have a constitution. Okay. Monarchy, democracy, king and 2007. Till then it is clear. What is democracy? Democracy in India, as we are having democracy, we choose leader so that they can exercise powers on our behalf. Means it is run by the people who are being elected by the citizens of the India. Okay. Now the number 5. The constitution usually contains rules that ensures the minorities are not excluded from anything that is routinely available to the majority. If we talk about our fundamental rights, with our constitution contains fundamental rights, there is a provision to protect the minorities from the majorities, means they cannot empower the minority group. It is necessary to protect the rights of the minority according to our constitution. So, the people movement in Nepal fought for several decades to establish democracy. They fought for, and finally they got the democracy. There is a difference between the Nepal constitution and Indian constitution before 1990 to till 2007. Now students, we come on the next and the most important topic of this chapter, that is the key features. Key features. There are 5 key features we can talk about. One is federalism. Second is parliamentary form of government. I am writing comment in a short form. You must have heard about these. Number 3, separation of powers. Number 4, fundamental rights. And the last is secularism. So student, first of all, I am going to make you clear the meaning of federalism. What is federalism? ठीक है? It refers to the existence of more than one organ in the government. I am writing in a short form. We are discussing key features of the constitution. Number 1, federalism. Number 2, parliamentary form of government. Number 3, separation of powers. Number 4, fundamental rights. And number 5, secularism. Under that, I am going to explain point number 1 here, that is federalism, which means it refers to the existence of more than one level of government. One level of government. more than one level. Here we are talking about more than one level. So, I am making you clear how it happens in India. If we talk about, we usually said that there we are having 3-tier government. Okay, how is it? We are talking about federalism. Student, make it clear, it will help you in the coming classes also. It will be helpful in the coming classes also. So, we are talking about more than one organ in the government, more than one level of government. Okay. How is it? We are having 3-tier government. First is central level, state level and the Panchayati Raj system. That is why we call it 3-tier. Now, central level, we are having central level at Delhi, state level in 29 states and Panchayati Raj above that, it includes municipal corporation like that. Okay? That is why we can ask that we are having federalism in our country, which is the most important key feature of Indian constitution. Now, the next, parliamentary form of government, that I will explain you through question and separation of power also and fundamental rights. Now, the fifth one, that is secularism. I can give you a little about the parliamentary form of government, in which the people who are elected by the citizens of the India runs the country. Means we people are having indirect control over the election or the selection of the members who are running the country. And the separation of powers as it is clear from the meaning that the powers among the organs of the constitution is divided. How is it? I will make you clear with the question. And the fundamental rights, as I have told you that in our constitution there is a provision of fundamental rights. If it is being violated, we can appeal to court directly. Everybody will get equal rights over the fundamental rights. What are they? How many they are? We will discuss when we will discuss the question and answers. Now, the next slide. So, students, I am going to make you mark some internal questions of this chapter. Mark it carefully with me. I am repeating and I will explain you on which page it is given. Number 1, who is known as the father of Indian constitution? You all know Baba Saheb Dr. Ambedkar. He was the chairman of the drafting committee of Indian constitution. That is why he is known as the father of Indian constitution. These pictures are taken just to make you remind. It is not a part of your book. So, mark on page number 11. Page number 11 with the picture. Write first 2 lines. Okay. Baba Saheb Dr. Ambedkar. Is it clear? Now, the internal question 2. I have asked you about the fundamental rights. It is given in our constitution. It is a important part of our constitution along with the directive principles. Any 3 of your choice you can write. I am right here. Number 1, right to equality, right to freedom, right to freedom of religion. So, students, right to equality. Right to equality means that each and every citizen of the India will get all the rights equally. There should be no discrimination on the basis of caste, gender or religion. Right to equality. Right to freedom. Right to freedom means we as a citizen are free to move any part of the country, to reside anywhere we want and to choose the profession, occupation of our choice. There is no boundaries from the government side. Now, last, right to freedom of religion. We as a citizens of India are free to choose the religion of our own choice. We can exit from the religion, we can embrace another religion, we have a right to process and propagate the religion according to ourselves or to choose the religion. Okay. These are the fundamental rights. Some are also given. So, keep on marking with me on page number 14. You can write of your own choice. There are 6 fundamental rights given on page number 14. Okay. I am again repeating, write any 3 fundamental rights. Number 1, right to equality. Number 2, right to freedom, and right to freedom of religion. I have explained all 3. Now, the internal question 3. Name 3 organs of the state. It is very much important for you to know the 3 organs of the state, that is legislature, executive and judiciary. This is given on page number 13. Open page number 13. Point number 3, separation of powers. According to the constitution, there are 3 organs of the state. There are legislature, executive and the judiciary. Right? Shall I repeat it again? Page number 13, as it is mentioned here, paragraph number, point number 3, separation of powers, line number 2. Clear? Now, what is the work of legislature? Legislature makes the law. These are the persons who are being elected by the people of India through elections. Executive implements law. They are responsible for implementing laws. Now, judiciary interprets law. And the last बच्चों internal question defines sovereign. Page number 17. पेज नंबर 17 में बेटा ग्लॉसरी में दे रखा है 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th number sovereign. It refers to independent people and we call India sovereign state. Why it's so? Because we are independent. We are free to move. We are free to adopt any religion. So, we can call we are living in a sovereign state. So, sovereign means independent people. Now, students, we will cover the copy part of this chapter. 1. The Indian Constitution. Very short answer type question. Number 1, what is tyranny? Student, as I have told you, this is a term given in your book, means to protect the minorities from the tyranny of the majority. This line will help you to make clear the meaning of the tyranny, means the cruel and the unjust use of the minority. Okay. It is just a term which is given in your book, that which means the cruel and the unjust use of power or authority. Now, what do you mean by parliamentary form of government? As I have told you, this means that people of India have a direct role in electing their representative. If we talk about parliamentary form of government, I am explaining you parliamentary form of government. Students, we have also read this point in the key points of the Constitution. I am again repeating it to make you more clear, because it is given in just 2 lines in your answer. This means that people of India have a direct role in electing their representative. How it's so? We are having universal adult franchise. According to that, each citizen of the India who is above the 18 years of age have a right to elect their representative through the election. And one more important thing is that every citizen can contest in the elections also, irrespective of caste and gender. That much is clear in the parliamentary form of government. Clear? That people of India, how the direct rate? Because they are electing. They are choosing their members who are running the country. Now the next is fundamental rights. We have cleared it in the key points and in the internal questions also. I am just telling you again that fundamental rights guarantees the rights of individuals against the state as well as against the individual. Means the majority groups cannot dominate the minority groups, and there are several fundamental rights as we have just discussed in the internal questions, which makes you more clear about the fundamental rights. Fundamental rights guarantees the rights of the individuals. It is mentioned and a very important part of the Indian Constitution. Now come to the next question. It is very important question, students, and very easy to learn. I am explaining you. Explain the term separation of powers. As I have told you, there are 3 organs. There are 3 organs. That is legislature, executive and judiciary. Students, these organs having powers. So we have to separate these powers according to our constitution. Why it's so? To let them work very smoothly without being biased. So their decisions which are being taken by them should not be biased. Legislature who are making law, responsible for making law. These are the people who are being directly elected by the common citizens of the India. Executive, they all are responsible for implementing laws. Implementing laws. And judiciary resolve the disputes if there are any kind of disputes among the citizens, among the state and the central, whatever kind of disputes is being solved by a judiciary, and all of 3 works independently. There is no, although they are working, they are a part of a government, but they work independently without being interference of each and other. Now I am going to explain you in the terms of question also. According to constitution, everything is mentioned in the constitution. According to constitution, there are 3 organs of the state. These are legislature, executive and the judiciary. In order to prevent the misuse of power by the organ of the state. Why it is separated? Why? Just to make it clear that they cannot misuse their powers. The constitution states that each of these organs should exercise different powers. Very interesting and important question, read it carefully. Now the next question. As I have told you that it is necessary to separate the power. Why so? What would happen if there were no restrictions on the power of elected representative? What would happen in that case if they are not having any restrictions? I have told you they can misuse of power. This picture is just to make you clear the topic. This is not a part of your book. If there were no restrictions, the power of the elected representative, there are always possibilities that leaders might misuse their authority, and the constitution usually provides safeguards. Constitution provides safeguards in the form of fundamental rights and directive principles, so the majority groups cannot dominate the minority groups. The misuse of authority can result in gross injustice. If the violation of the fundamental right is done, there would be a chances of a gross injustice. So, to prevent this, our constitution has provided that the separation of powers among the organs of the government. Clear? Now, the question number 6. Why does a democratic country needs a constitution? I have explained you in a very earlier that India is a democratic country. Why it's so? Because we people elect our representatives who work on our behalf and form the government. A democratic country needs a constitution because of the following. I have written this point in the very beginning on the blackboard. I am again explaining you. It lays out certain ideas that form the basis of kind of country that we as citizens aspire to live in. Students, if we play a game of football, we have to follow some rules. If we come to school, we have to come in the uniform. Why? It is just a rules. So, we can say that our constitution gives us some guidelines which makes us more clear what we can do or what we cannot do. A constitution has set of rules and principles that all the person, that I have given you the example of football and the school, like that there are some set of rules that the person in the country can agree upon as well as follow on the basis of the way in which they want the country to be governed. So, democratic country needs a constitution. Okay. So, to work smoothly, so to follow the rules and the regulations which is being mentioned in the constitution. Now, the last question. What is the difference between executive power in the 1990 and the interim constitution of the Nepal? Keeping this in mind, why do you think Nepal needs a new constitution today? While explaining the points to remember, I have explained you that before 1990 there was a rule of monarchy. Make it clear, monarchy means a rule of king in the Nepal. After that they fought to get a democracy. In the 1990 Nepal constitution, the executive powers of the kingdom was entirely in the hands of the king, as I have told you. Make it clear, but that the constitution drafted in 2007, which was according to the democracy. The constitution powers of Nepal were in the hands of Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, as it happens in the democracy. This is a key point of a democracy. The old constitution means when the powers were rested in the hands of the king. We are talking here, it is mentioned in talking about the 1990. Was drafted when the country was under the rule of the king. The people of Nepal fought for a democratic government for many years. So, they need to change their constitution accordingly, because it was not reflecting the ideas of the country which they wanted the Nepal to be. Ideas of the people, the new constitution will bring new ideas in the society. Students, I hope this chapter is now more clear to you. We will start with chapter 2. So, students, now we will start with the chapter 2, understanding secularism. This is a revision. We have taken this chapter before. We are going to revise to make you that chapter more clear. So, students, take out your book, chapter number 2, understanding secularism, and that is given on your page number 18. First of all, you have read in the key features of the constitution the point number 5, that was secularism. Okay. I am going to repeat this in a very detailed form. First of all, points to remember which will help you to learn this chapter more and easily. Number 1, a country which does not officially promote any religion as its country's religion is a secular country. The country which is not officially promoting any religion is called a secular country. India is one of them, make it remember. I am going to explain you through the board which will be more beneficial for you. Number 1, what is secularism? Okay. In your book, several examples of given like Israel and of the Saudi Arabia. Okay. India. First of all, come to the point, what is secularism? State, listen to me carefully, state does not officially promote any religion as the state religion. I am making you clear through explanation. State does not officially promote any religion as a state religion, means all the religions are equal. There are no boundaries set by the government. People can choose religion of their own choice. That is called secular, and the country who adopt this is called a secular country. This comes under the term of secularism. Okay. If we talk about Saudi Arabia, there non-Muslims are not allowed to build churches or the temples, and in India we are free to do so. So, what is the difference between the India and the Saudi Arabia? We can say that Saudi Arabia is a non-secular state. And another example, that is Israel, where the minority groups are treated very badly. Minority means who are less in number in comparison to the rest society. The people who are less in number are treated quite badly, and they are not giving the religious freedom as well as they are given in the India. So, we can say that Saudi Arabia is a non-secular and India is a secular state. Why India is a secular state? Because India gives its citizens freedom to embrace, to choose the religion of their own choice. There is no boundary set by the government. I hope this is clear to you, the meaning of the secularism. A separation of religion from the state is known as secularism. Now, students, before that I am going continue the chapter. After that, before that, I would like to make you clear the some another key points of the chapter. That is, the state can intervene in religion in order to end an evil social practice which it believes discriminate and violates fundamental rights. You have learned about the fundamental rights in the chapter number 1, that no violation of the fundamental rights. If it is being violated, anybody can go to the court. This is a provision which has mentioned in our constitution. Now, what is intervene? We say that there is a strict separation between the state and the religion. But in the case of India, India can intervene. Intervene in Hindi we call hastakshep. Intervene in two cases. One, if some evil practices is going on like untouchability, and second in the form of the support. The meaning of the secularism is clear. Now, I am going to tell you the another important point of the chapter, why it is necessary to separate the religion from the state. Student, as I have I am covering the revision of this part, so I can broadly explain you why it is necessary to separate the religion from the state. Number 1, to protect the rights of minorities. Okay. And the second is protect the freedom of individuals. How it's so? Protect the rights of the minority is very much important, as I have told you that minorities are less in the number in comparison to the rest society. If it would not happen, India can't work democratically, and the majorities would cross their limits and would empower over the minorities, and the minorities would be at stake. So, to protect the minorities, it is very necessary to separate the religion from the state. Second, to protect the freedom of individual. As in India, everybody is free to choose, to embrace or to exit from the religion. It is up to their choice. Government will not enforce any citizens to do so. So, following points are important to separate the religion from the state. If we talk about India, is not ruled by religious group, nor does it support any religion in India. All the religions are equal. It is not supporting, it is not promoting any religion. So, we can say India is a secular state. Students, if we talk about government spaces like courts, police station, government schools, they are not supposed to display any kind of religious which promoting the religions, they are not allowed to display. Now, the Indian secularism is different from another democratic countries. How it's so? I will explain you through the answer. Unlike the strict separation between religion and the state in American secularism, Indian state can intervene in religious affairs. I have told you that there is a strict separation between religion and the state, but if we talk about India, Indian constitution, Indian government can interfere in two aspects. One, if some evil practices is going on, another is the kind of support. The intervention of the state can also be formed in the support. Indian constitution intervened in Hindu religious practice in order to abolish untouchability. Now, mark some internal questions with me, which is very important for you to know. Number 1 is give one example of secular and non-secular state. As I have explained you while explaining the chapter, India is a secular state. Why it's so? You also know it, because it is not promoting any religion. All the religions are equal, and Saudi Arabia is non-secular state. Given page number 19, open page number 19. In the first para, last line, mark it. Now, which type of states gives you religious freedom? This is very much clear to you. You can answer it by your own definitely. Only a secular state gives us a religious freedom. That is given on page number 21, points number 1 and 2. Okay. Now, we are going to discuss question and answers. Define coercion. Coercion is the act to force someone to do something used by a legal authority like the state. Again, it is a term given in your book with the reference to protect the rights of the minorities, so that no one can force minorities to do something by using the authority, as even the state can't do that. Okay, this is just a term which is given to make you clear that the minorities' rights cannot be empowered by the majority. What do you understand by the term intervene? I have made you clear. Even the Hindi meaning I have also told you. Intervene refers to the state efforts. State effort. This is just a state effort, and according to the constitution, make it clear, if state is intervening or interfering it should be according to the constitution, the rules that laid out in our constitution, and it is in the form of support or some evil practices going on there to remove them. That is intervene. Again I am repeating, intervene refers to the state's efforts to influence a particular matter in accordance with the principles of the constitution. This is very much important for you to know, according to the principles of the constitution. Okay. Now the next question. Very important question, very easy question. I have explained many times during this video and even the last videos also. So I am again making you clear. Secularism is a very important term which will help you in the coming classes also. Secularism is the belief that no one should be discriminated on the basis of religion he or she practices. As we can see that in India, every religion, every festivals we are entertained. Which religion he or she follows is equal in the eyes of the laws and policies that govern the nation. Do I need to clear it again? Secularism is very much clear to you. State does not officially promote any religion. Everybody is equal before the law. There should be no discrimination on the basis of the caste and the gender. You are free to move, you are free to embrace any religion or interpret the religious preachings indifferently according to you. Clear? Now, what are the objectives of secular state? Students, it is our constitution which mandates the India to be a secular state. Some objectives make you more clear about it. First of all that, suppose one religious group, another religious group. One religious group have no right to dominate over the another religious group. Number one point that is clear. One religious community does not dominate another. Number one point, one religious community does not dominate another. Okay. One religious community does not, and the members of the majority groups have no right to dominate the members of the minority groups. Within this group, some members, it can be seen that there are some members who trying to dominate the majority groups. This should not be done. No, they are not having any right to dominate another minority group. And the most important thing, that state does not enforce any power. There is no restriction from the state, does not enforce any particular religion, nor take away the religious freedom of individuals. I hope this is objectives is very much clear to you. I am again repeating it, that one religious community does not dominate another. One religious community, suppose Hindu, they cannot dominate the another groups, whatever it is. Okay. Some members do not dominate. Some members in that particular groups cannot dominate the another members of the same religious community. And the state does not enforce any particular religion. State will not enforce any particular religion nor take away the religious freedom of individuals. These are the objectives of secular state, which makes the state more secular, and it is mandatory. We can say these are the key points. Now the question 5. In what ways does Indian secularism differ from others? This is very important. The strict separation. If we talk about Indian state, there is a Indian secularism, the state can intervene in religious affairs, but in American state there is a strict separation between the religion and the state. State cannot interfere in the religion in any case, but if we talk about India, the Indian constitution guarantees fundamental rights that are based on these secular principles. We are given some fundamental rights to our citizens. These are their rights. If their rights are violated, they can appeal to the court. And the second the Indian constitution permits the states to intervene in religious matters if untouchability is going on. If any kind of discrimination is going on, then state can interfere. And inheritance law to establish the fundamental right of equality. If somebody's fundamental rights is being violated, then the state can interfere in 2 cases only. This means that any reference in religion by state has to be based on the ideas laid out in the constitution, but it should be according to the ideas which laid out in the constitution. And the second, in the form of support. Why so? Support means if government wants some institution to uplift, it can provide aids. In the form of aids, government can support for their upliftment. So, it is clear why the Indian secularism is different from others. Basically 2 points are there. Only in the case of untouchability or some evil practices are going on or some fundamental rights are violated, or in the form of support. Okay. I hope this is clear to you. So, read it carefully. Once again, it will be really helpful to you. Watch this video till end. Thank you so much.